evening, and welcome back to the weird and the wonderful with Strange Bones. That's me. And as per the requests of the last live, we are going to be doing for our topic today the UFOs and the aliens of Australia. And we have some high hopes for it as well. It looks like it'll be interesting. So we shall find out what is high up in Down Under. So I hope you're all ready for an interesting trip. I hope that you're all keen to get involved. And we're going to start ourselves off, get things going. And the first man on the block is none other than the Scoutmeister himself. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I hope you are doing greatly on this freezing day. I am in fine and fabulous form. I am so far enjoying myself immensely. I hope you are well. I hope your dear better half is very, very well as well. Well, we're better than you because today it was almost, not quite, but almost warm, and no rain. So not too shabby. Welcome to Carol. Yeah, it's crummy weather of late, but I am well wrapped because you got to keep yourself warm. So yeah, we are starting off our live looking at, as per our request on our last live. Many thanks for the likes there, good sir. That is wondrous. We were asked to do Australia. Where's the coffee? Well, I haven't got coffee. My better half got me the most amazing juice, apple cranberry, and I got to admit it's one of my favorites. It's really nice. So I'm well set. There will be coffee probably available if need be, but so far so good. I'm well set for tonight. So Australia. And there is the man himself, String Pere, um, who asked us, in fact, to do Australia. And Australia it is. So, Strange Bones coffee mugs with skulls on them. I think that would be a fantastic idea. Can you imagine? Properly creepy. If we check out my Strange Bones, maybe something like that. What do you think? Would you use a coffee mug that looked like that? I think that would actually look like a pretty sick coffee mug. Strange Bones with creepy Amityville type houses in the background. I think I will look into it. I found a guy actually the other day that instead of printing a picture on the mug, he actually sandblasts it in so it's in 3D relief, which is really, really, really nice. Yes, Strange Beans. Now there we go. Strange Beans coffee. I could get behind that because I'm a coffee addict of note. I'm sure all of you are dead keen on uh, coffee too. Sitting up late at night and talking about supernatural and paranormal and all of the strange and twisted things that are out there. So, yes, okay, to begin with, just very quickly, I'm going to remind everybody that we greatly approve of comments. We do not expect you to agree or disagree with anything whatsoever. We like differing opinions. Um, the only specific thing that is a rule is be polite. If you are rude or disruptive, we will give you the boot. Other than that, we enjoy interaction in every way. And speaking of interaction, huge thanks there to Scarpy for the likes. Um, and remember, like, share, subscribe, and do all the good things to help keep the channel going. And yeah, I'm going to look into the possibility of a strange beans mug. I think that's a fantastic idea. Um, I'll have to get one designed and see how it looks. Yeah, I actually do have a moderator now. He's not always available, sadly, but he is very strict. He's actually in Cape Town, believe it or not, Ali, and he definitely keeps the riffraff um, at bay. Though we don't kick off the strange ones, because after all, we are all strange here. That's a bit of a paraphrase from Alice in Wonderland. So there we go. So, with that said, what can we say? We can say the following. In terms of UFOs in Australia, absolutely, it is indeed a thing. And there is a history of UFO sightings with some quite well-known incidents and locations. So my research into the topic, yes, weird ones. You're as weird as I am, so don't argue, Scarpy. Um, one of the most prominent examples is actually one which is pretty famous, which is the Westall UFO sighting in 1966, where multiple students at a Melbourne high school reported dish-shaped object. Another one is the Wycliffe Well in Northern Territory, which has gained reputation as the UFO capital of Australia. That sounds promising, I think. We do enjoy the idea of lots to talk about. While many sightings do remain unexplained, quite a lot have been attributed to ordinary type things, but this, of course, we expect. So our top places, such as they are, Westall High School, Wycliffe Well, Tully in Queensland, the Nullarbor Plain, and Bass Strait. We do note, however, the Royal Australian Air Force, the RAAF, did investigate quite a lot of UFO sightings in the 70s, even providing a pro forma questionnaire to the public. Many sightings have been attributed to natural phenomena, which, as we have said, we expect. So, satellites, bright stars, weather balloons, weather patterns, no problem. Some sightings, however, like the one over Bass Strait, have possibly been linked to private rockets or disorientation on the part of the observer, maybe. Some cases remain unexplained. Many UFO reports are not treated as evidence of extraterrestrial life, but rather as potential threats or high-tech aircraft. Now, that potential threats is an interesting one. However, in the modern age, the Australian government does not actively investigate UFO sightings, unlike many other countries that do indeed have active investigations. There is, however, still plenty of public interest, and there are private groups that continue to investigate and analyze reports. And the US military's release of UFO videos in recent years has fueled public interest and discussion about the possibility of extraterrestrial life, even though the videos may not be proof. And here is one of the great problems, just to remind you all that in terms of modern technology, we are at a point where we have possibly the best ability to make videos, to get that kind of thing. But unfortunately, as advanced as we are, it's also a case that nowadays we can manipulate videos and things, which means that the very increasing technology that allows us potentially to get more evidence also makes that evidence possibly useless. Kind of a problem. Nevertheless, guys, welcome, welcome. I see a couple of you are back. It's your girl Sash has joined. Paris girl. Mila's back. Fozia. So a couple of people whose names I recognize. Robin. Krim Hussein. So welcome, welcome. Let's get started with the good stuff. So we are going to begin with pre-1900. In 1868, an alderman in Parramatta in New South Wales, Frederick Birmingham, spotted what he described as an arc, more appropriate for traversing the water, yet floating in the sky, before landing in Parramatta Park. Parramatta Park is a major urban park and historic site in Western Sydney, Australia, and it was gazetted as a public park in 1858. So a pretty big place. Now, interesting because back in 1868, as you can well imagine, at least as far as we know, people did not have any form of flying machine. So the sight of such a thing must have caused something of a stir. Moving forward a bit to the 1950s, 22nd of January 1954, 3 people in Gawler in South Australia spotted a white UFO flying overhead, followed shortly after by an RAAF jet. Now, from what I understand, this is one of the ones that they reckon wasn't a UFO, but something to do with the jet itself, possibly some kind of a test round or something like that. But that said, there was not enough evidence to argue either way. So that one's up for us to decide for ourselves, I suppose. 1960s, 19th of January 1966, a farmer from Tully, Queensland, reported seeing a large saucer-shaped object as well as a so-called nest of reeds in a swamp where the UFO was spotted, and I believe I have some notes on this and I will get to it in a brief moment. 6th of April 1966, students and some staff at Westall High School in Clayton, South Victoria, said they saw a UFO fly over their school and then descend into a nearby paddock. Now, let's start with okay, that one died rather badly. Why did it die? Stop that. Okay, so that's the triangular, and we are looking for Tully and Westall, and there is Westall. So, Westall, the Westall UFO, just for you. Let's see what we can say about Westall. And the Westall UFO, I believe Westall is a school. It occurred on 6th of April 1966 in Melbourne, Victoria. It's not terribly far from the bay, but it's in what is really and truly a pretty dense area. The object, such that it was observed by multiple individuals, including students at Westall High School. Now, I do remind you that the more people seeing, the better, because there's less chance of misinterpretation. Specific details vary between accounts, which increase the difficulty of identification. The sighting has been commemorated with documentaries, reunions, and a local UFO playground. However, Wednesday, 6th of April, students and a teacher from Westall High School, which is now Westall Secondary College, reported seeing a flying object. It was described as round, with a domed top, and white and grey or silver in color. According to the students, the object descended behind a row of trees and into the Grange, which is an open area south of the school. Some accounts describe the object as being pursued by 5 unidentified aircraft. Sean Matthews was on vacation at the Grange and reported seeing an object with a slight purple hue and about twice the size of a family car. Now, what's interesting about this, of course, is the fact that this is a very common description from what we have seen thus far, that the apparent scout ships that they say UFOs or aliens use generally are round and saucer shape and about that size. So it fits to what we have seen, at least in other places. Whether or not it's real is another question, but nevertheless. Some witnesses reported seeing the object take off after landing, and some reported seeing it hover rather than land. When students walked to the Grange after the sighting, some reported a landing site, but the details varied between reports. Students variously described a circle of grass as burnt, boiled, or pressed down. One student interviewed by a local newspaper described a vague circular area flattened by the wind. So there is that at least as a start. And we have somebody that's at least was trying to join. Alas, it seemed that he did not succeed. That's a terrible pity. Maybe he will try again. But let's see if we can get somebody to add in and give an opinion. Because I think that would be a great thing. There we go. Now, Students also reported varying numbers of circles from 1 up to 3. On 9th of April 1966, Air Force personnel and UFO enthusiasts visited the field but reported nothing of interest. The landowner then burnt the field so that he could discourage people from entering his property. So, if there was any physical evidence, as we do so like to get, it went south. Shame. It seems that String Parade tried to join and couldn't. And that is very sad. I'm terribly sorry. I did try and get you in, but nevertheless, add any comments or questions in the text, and I will absolutely say them aloud to everybody and do my best to respond as best I can, because I think that would be absolutely fantastic. So, the Australian, many thanks to Jackie B, you're a delight. The Australian newspaper, The Age, described it at the time as a weather balloon, an unidentified flying object seen over the Clayton Moorabbin area yesterday morning might have been a weather balloon. Hundreds of children and a number of teachers at Westall School Clayton watched the object during morning break. The Weather Bureau did release a balloon at Laverton at 8:30 a.m., and the westerly wind blowing at the time could have moved it into the area where the sighting was reported. The newspaper also said a number of small aeroplanes circled around it. However, a check later showed that no commercial, private, or RAAF pilots reported anything in the area. So it seems that that might not have been as true as all that. So, nevertheless, much thanks for the likes there. You guys are great. I definitely need them to keep things going. So, of course, according to Keith Basterfield, a runaway balloon from the HIBAL, High Altitude Balloon Project, used to monitor radiation levels after the British nuclear tests at Maralinga, is likely explanation. Now, I'm just going to throw it out there. When I studied history back in the day in school and what have you, we did a whole thing about the nuclear tests and the post-war stuff. I don't remember the British nuclear tests, and I find it very interesting that, and this sort of says it all really. The British did their testing in Australia. The Maralinga site in South Australia, part of the Woomera prohibited area, about 800 kilometres northwest of Adelaide. Two major test series were conducted. Operation Buffalo in 1956 was one of them. I think I'm going to need to go and find out more about this. Who else is dropping nuclear bombs around the world and we just didn't get told about it? It seems a bit dodgy to me. But nevertheless, I mean, I do know for a fact that when one of the big American tests in the islands, they never told any of the people on the island that they were doing it. And the poor buggers woke up to what was basically white ash falling everywhere, wondering what the heck was going on and what went bang like that. So at the end of the day, the worldwide nuclear testings seems to have been a bit on the dodgy variety right off start. But not our topic for today, despite much fascination with that. So let's go on. When it comes to the weird and the wonderful, not everything is supernatural, but sometimes it can be quite weird. Blasterfield located documents in the National Archives and former Department of Supply indicating a test balloon launched from Mildura may have been blown off course and come down in the paddock near Westall High School, alarming and baffling hundreds of eyewitnesses, including teachers and students. Basterfield said that the highball balloons have a white and silvery appearance and featured a parachute and gas tube trailing from the top, which they say is consistent with witness descriptions of the object. There were also reports after the incident of men in suits cautioning witnesses not to discuss details of a secret government exercise. So, yep, the men in black are real. You've heard it here first of all. Agent K is out there. Um, just saying. Just saying. Uh, I am at lost for words. You know, if I was a serious conspiracy theorist, this would be gold right there. I mean, come on, guys. This is gold. According to skeptic Brian Dunning, a weather balloon is the most likely explanation for the first half of the event. Dunning suggested that a nylon target drogue like a windsock, towed by one plane for the others to chase, and known to be in use by the local RAAF at the time, was at least one very reasonable possibility for the second half. Dunning added that as years have passed, descriptions of what actually was seen have now become diluted with made up descriptions by an unknown number of students who didn't see anything. And there's no way anymore to tell which was which. We do know that the documentary Westall 66 focuses on the sighting. It's based on interviews that ufologists Shane Ryan conducted with residents. It was incorporated into the National History curriculum as a lesson on critical analysis of popular portrayals of historic events. The Phenomenon, a documentary film directed and co-produced by ufologist James Fox, includes content related to the Westall UFO case. So, if that's what you're interested in, there is quite a bit. And it can absolutely be further attended to if need be. There was a witness reunion held in Westall in 2006 to commemorate the 40th anniversary of the incident, and the city of Kingston created a children's play space, the Grange Reserve UFO Park. So it has a silver UFO with red slides to reflect the UFO incident, which in many ways is the most human thing I've ever heard. We encountered something we cannot explain. It's utterly weird, possibly dangerous. We'll make a kids' play area in commemoration of it. So, you have to love it. Nevertheless, that was one such story. There are a couple of others which we can attend to as we progress. And the next one that I want to do was the one in Tully. If I can find my notes. There's the Woomera testing site. That's the nullable. Was this one? Nope, that was not the right one. Where is Tully gone? Tully is hidden. Well, we shall come back if we can. Well, instead we'll go to the giant triangle. So what is the giant triangle? Because that one sounds pretty good as well. The giant triangle was reported by an Australian real estate agent, which I think is amusing, if nothing else. So, according to this real estate agent, he had a sighting, which he says changed the course of my life. Well, that's fair. I suppose it would. Clark Watson has been interested in researching UFOs all his life. But on the 1st of February 2023, which is pretty recent, and a good one therefore, what was a casual hobby suddenly became very real. So the real estate agent from Albury in southern New South Wales was staying at a hotel in Wyong, north of Sydney, to attend a training course when the up close and personal sighting allegedly occurred. It was around 9:30 p.m. While he was sitting. He was sitting looking out at the hotel, and he watched a white blinking light come in from several kilometers out over the ocean, moving in a way that was impossible to explain before being joined by a second light. The object started around the sky and buzzed over the town at incredible speeds. They chased each other, he said, around the sky like dogs at a park. These things could instantly go from standing still to the other side of the sky. The objects came in over Tigera Lake from what he estimated to be around 1,500 feet, then swooped to the ground. Probably as low as 200 or 300 feet. They came over the top of my hotel, and I could have hit them with an arrow. They came in, formed a Ferris wheel in the sky, and had a strange interaction with another one. A 3-minute mobile phone video filmed from his balcony shows several indistinct, flickering white lights moving around the sky. And he says in the video, wow, it's like a big pinwheel rotating around itself. And adult language will now be used. So I'll say it in Australian accent, so it's okay. That is the weirdest fucking thing I've ever seen. So apparently he thought it was weird. At one point, two lights are seen dancing around each other near a third solid bright white light, which does not move before heading back the way they came. One is just sitting there, he says, referring to the third object. What's he doing? It's actually a bit creepy. Look at him just sitting up there. A short excerpt from the full sighting roughly shows about 10% of what I could actually see with the naked eye, he noted in the video description. The ones I saw were just bright white, very different white to a star. A lot brighter than stars, brightest thing in the sky, crystal clear objects that darted around the sky. About an hour later, Mr. Watson saw a triangle come in from the ocean. It was about an acre in size. It was huge. It just hovered at an altitude of around 400 feet. I had no idea what it was. It was absolutely mind-blowing to witness it. It was like nothing I had ever seen on Earth. My mind could not categorize it. He added that the giant triangle, which had dim lights on the corners and was not bright like the earlier objects, looked organic. Now, there you go. If you want creepy, right there is creepy for you. An organic UFO. He said it looked like snakeskin, charcoal and brown. He said he's had long and been interested in the topic of UFOs, but it wasn't until 2023, after 20 years of being a researcher, that I had my own profound experience and saw an object up close. That changed everything for me. It became very real. It was here, it was active. That's when I got involved. And it was at this point that he signed up as a volunteer field research with the Australian chapter of the Mutual UFO Network, MUFON. Come on, guys, they could have done better than that with the name. MUFON is a US-based non-profit organization which collects reports of UFO sightings from all over the world. The acronyms kill me. Interest in UFOs or UAPs, the proper name for us plebs, unidentified anomalous phenomena, as they are now known, has reached fever pitch in recent months, following an unprecedented push for disclosure by US Congress and a flurry of fantastical claims from alleged whistleblowers about shadowy government crash retrieval programs. We're averaging around 5 to 10 cases per week now that come through, said Mr. Watson, who stressed he was speaking in his personal capacity and not on behalf of MUFON. The role of MUFON investigators is sorting the wheat from the chaff, attempting to rule out earthly explanations for sightings. A field investigator looks for the possibility that the witness misinterpreted what they've seen. Common objects that a witness might consider to be a UFO, like Chinese lanterns, aircraft, drones, astronomical objects, and light reflections. Mr. Watson said MUFON resolutely stayed away from speculation about alien bodies, crashed spacecraft, or shadowy conspiracies. According to his comment, MUFON is in the skeptic game. It sounds like a sheep. I'm sorry, it just does. It sounds like a sheep. We're not interested in anything we can't verify. We're trying to collect good witnesses' account backed up with data. We'll look at what was in the air at the time, any festivals, events, and over 70 to 80% are misidentified and are in fact aircraft, planets, weather events, or any number of things. They're all UFOs right up until the point where they're not. There were 410 sightings reported to MUFON in July, however, mostly in the US. Australia had just 7. It was a quiet month for Australia. The stigma in Australia remains. People are very hesitant to speak about it because it's still seen as a silly subject. Many, many thanks there for the likes to Dot. Some of you have wonderful names, but it makes it very hard to say thank you to you when what you have is just a dot. But thank you anyway. I greatly appreciate the likes, shares, subscribes, and all of the good things. So thanks as well to Claudia Russo 1111. But as we progress, it says that there is more of a transition these days, with people feeling more comfortable to actually talk about this kind of stuff. And he says part of it is because people can't talk about it because people will think they're silly. So it's nice to have someone that they can talk to. And they feel both comforted, which is fair enough, and justified, which I suppose if you've seen something like that, you would feel a bit concerned. So fair enough. I know in this country as well, people are hesitant. There are a few hotspots in Australia, including Gosford, south of Wyong. They're typically around coastal areas, but that might be because the middle of Australia is bloody empty because it's a desert, so you don't get very many reports where there are very, very, very few people. Other hotspots include the Nullarbor Plain, where in 1988 a family claimed their car was chased down the highway and lifted off the ground. Then the next interesting places include well, they say top secret, but we know it's there. Maybe they mean what they do there is top secret. The Pine Gap US spy base in Central Australia, which is supposed to be top secret, and the Lucas Heights nuclear reactor in Sydney. So the aliens are making sure to check on what humanity is getting up to, which I suppose is suitably suitable. So there are quite a few interesting ones. They mention the abduction of Frederick Valentich over the Bass Strait in 1978, which we will be looking at. The Westall incident, which we just did. And they point out that these days, the government, including the RAAF, refers reports of sightings to the civilian groups, and they don't do anything anymore. But during the Cold War, the RAAF collected hundreds of reports of UFOs, which are now held in the National Archives of Australia. Nah, sorry, I can't help it. These acronyms, you can just imagine an Australian going, I spoke to Nah. But nevertheless, about 90% were later determined to be not UFOs. Acronyms. You got to love them and hate them at the same time. About 7% could not be investigated due to lack of time or information, and 3% are attributed to truly unknown cases. But the RAAF reasoned that there's just not enough to present any kind of threat to security, which is why they don't bother anymore. So while America and Brazil are coming out and saying that, yes, there are anomalous objects, the Australian government stays completely silent on it. He says, Australia is subservient to America, and I think we've just placed ourselves in a subservient position and been instructed it isn't a topic to talk about. There was a big problem with UFO research in Australia. That's fighting talk right there. the most credible sightings where you have multiple sensor data and witness data. The US is presenting witness data from fighter pilots, sensor data, and more. Our government will not engage with the topic at all, and what you've got left is witness accounts. And trouble is, most of the time, witness accounts are just stories, which I suppose is very frustrating and fair enough. Yeah, but nevertheless, they are driven. Absence of evidence is not evidence of absence, he says. I don't know. What do you guys think? Um, Real or rubbish? Sometimes it's difficult to decide. Any comments there? Stefan, your fish's favorite center? Tando, give us a comment. Anyone else? Don't know. Well, let's talk about the Valentich disappearance, which happened in the 1970s. It's specifically 21st of October 1978, where 20-year-old Frederick Valentich disappeared while piloting a small Cessna 182 aircraft over Bass Strait to King Island in Tassie. Described as a flying saucer enthusiast, Valentich informed Melbourne Air Traffic Control that he was being accompanied by an unknown aircraft. Well, that right there sounds promising. So the Valentich disappearance. Now, this leads into the Bass Strait Triangle. So let us begin, if you will, and welcome to all you new people that joined, with Frederick Valentich. He's an Australian pirate, disappeared while on a 125 nautical mile, that's 232 kilometer flight, in a Cessna 182 litre light aircraft, registered VHDSJ over the Bass Strait on the evening of Saturday, 21 October 1978. The Tokoloshi is the scariest ghost. Ah, but I put it to you there. Is it a ghost? You see, according to what we have looked at thus far, it might not be a ghost at all, but either a kind of cryptid or possibly a kind of jinn, which makes it something else entirely, but nevertheless scary. So you got this pilot, young guy for a pilot, but he informed Melbourne Air Traffic Control that he was being accompanied by an aircraft about 1,000 feet above him, and that his engine had begun running roughly before finally reporting, hold on, it's not an aircraft. All right, well, that's a fine exit line, let's face it. I mean, if you're going to disappear after that, you've said all that is need. There were belated reports of a UFO sighting in Australia on the night of the disappearance. However, the Department of Transport was skeptical that a UFO was behind Valentich's disappearance, and some of their officials speculated that Valentich became disorientated and saw his own lights reflected in the water or lights from a nearby island while flying upside down. I'm just going to say that you would have to be a pretty shitty pilot to be flying upside down and not realize it. I'm just throwing it out there. I'm dubious about that explanation. So Friedrich Valentich disappeared in 1978, had 150 total hours of flying time, and held a Class 4 instrument rating, which authorized him to fly at night, but only in visual meteorological conditions. He had twice applied to enlist in the RAAF, but was rejected due to inadequate educational qualifications. He was part of the RAAF training corps and determined to have a career in aviation. Good on him. He was studying part-time to become a commercial pilot, but had a poor achievement record, having twice failed all 5 commercial license examination subjects. Recently, as the month before his disappearance, he had failed 3 more commercial license subjects and been involved in flying incidents, such as straying into a controlled zone in Sydney, for which he received a warning, and twice deliberately flying into a cloud, for which prosecution was being considered. According to his father, Guido, Valentich was an ardent believer in UFOs and was worried about being attacked by them. 6 days before his disappearance, he discussed with his girlfriend, Rhonda Rushton, the possibility of a UFO taking him away. I stand by what I said, and you may draw what conclusions you feel are appropriate in this regard. I'm not certain I would have wanted this fine young man as my pilot. I'm just saying. Make of this as you will. His final flight was with destination King Island, but his motivation for the flight is unknown. He told officials he was going to King Island to pick up some friends, while he told others that he was going to pick up crayfish. Later investigations found both stated reasons to be untrue. He had also failed to inform King Island Airport of his intention to land there, which went against standard procedure. So I said you'd have to be a fairly dubious pilot to fly upside down without knowing it. And I'm just going to say that it seems that he was a fairly dubious pilot. Or was it a cover-up with him being blamed? So he radios Melbourne flight surface that he's being followed. He was told there was no known traffic at that level. He said that he could see a large unknown aircraft with what appeared to be illuminated by 4 bright landing lights. He was unable to confirm its type, but he said it was about 1,000 feet overhead and moving at high speed. He then responded that the aircraft was approaching him from the east and that the other pilot might be purposefully toying with him. Then he said the aircraft was orbiting above him and it had a shiny metal surface with a green light on. He then said that he was experiencing engine problems. Asked to identify the aircraft, he then said, "It's not an aircraft." His transmission was then interrupted by unidentified noise described as metallic scraping sounds, and all contact was lost. So right there you have what was known up to the point. Sea and air rescue was undertaken that included an ocean-going ship traffic, an RAAF Lockheed P-3 Orion aircraft, and 8 civilian aircraft. It encompassed 1,000 square miles, but nothing was found and by the 25th of October 1978, search efforts ceased. Now, it was just presumed fatal. 5 years after the aircraft went missing, an engine cowl flap washed ashore at Flinders Island. In July of 1983, the Bureau of Air Safety Investigation asked the Royal Australian Navy Research Laboratory about the likelihood that the cowl flap might have travelled to its ultimate position from the region where the aircraft allegedly disappeared. The Bureau noted that the part has been identified as having come from a Cessna 182 aircraft between a certain range of serial numbers, which assumedly included Valentik's aircraft. So, not entirely sure what we can make of this specific disappearance. Some have speculated he went to commit suicide, but it seems that this was almost impossible due to all kinds of reasons after this was being investigated. It's been proposed that he staged his own disappearance. The Cessna did have enough fuel to fly about 800 kilometers. At no time was the aircraft plotted on radar, casting doubts whether it went anywhere that was known. Melbourne police received reports of a light aircraft making a mysterious landing not far from Cape Otway at the same time as Valentik's disappearance. According to Brian Dunning, the radio conversation was similar to the dialogue from the scene in the film Close Encounters of the Third Kind, released just a year before the disappearance, and was very popular among pilots, young people, and UFO fans. So it could have been that Valentik was trying to imitate the scene for fun and made his aircraft fly in a circular pattern to give the radar guys something to see, but then became disorientated and crashed into the water. In 2013, the review of the radio transcripts and other data made the proposal that Valentik was deceived by the illusion of a tilted horizon, for which he attempted to compensate and inadvertently put his aircraft into a downward spiral. So that's possible. The g-forces of a tightening spiral would decrease the fuel flow, resulting in rough idling, which would explain a great deal, and a downward spiral would obviously result in a crash. Fair enough. So those are all the reasons why there was no UFOs involved. However, what if there was? Ufologists have claimed that either the UFO destroyed Valentik's aircraft or abducted him, saying that some individuals reported seeing an erratically moving green light in the sky and that he was in a steep dive at the time. Ufologists believe these accounts are significant because the green light mentioned in Valentik's radio transmissions. However, the Mount Stromlo Observatory noted that there was a meteorite storm that night with 10 to 15 sightings per hour. The group Ground Saucer Watch, based in Phoenix, Arizona, claims that photos taken by plumber Roy Manifold on the day of Valentik's disappearance show a fast-moving object exiting the water near the Cape Otway Lighthouse. According to UFO writer Jerome Clark, Ground Saucer Watch argued that they showed a bona fide unknown flying object of moderate dimensions, apparently surrounded by cloud-like exhaust residue, but the pictures were not clear enough to identify the object, and it was probably an out-of-focus fly or a passing bird. That was a wholly unsatisfying story, I will admit. I'd like it to either be proved or deeply weird. But let's talk about the Bass Strait Triangle. So the Bass Strait Triangle are the waters that separate the states of Victoria and Tasmania, including the Bass Strait in southeastern Australia. The term Bass Strait Triangle was inspired by the Bermuda Triangle, appears to have been first used following the disappearance of Frederick Valentich. Although the region has had a reputation, it was never necessarily subscribed to supernatural forces before, but the reputation was there. It's basically generally to be fairly shallow. It's about 300 kilometers wide, 200 kilometers north-south, can't say tall, and it's around 50 meters deep. So you've got King Island, Tasmania at the western entrance of the strait, which causes unpredictable sea conditions, and especially when strong winds occur. Why do we care? Well, the Bass Strait was discovered following the wreck of the ship, the Sydney Cove, on the Phoenix Group in 1797. One of their vessels engaged in the salvage operation was the sloop Eliza, which went missing as well. Hundreds of vessels, from small yachts and fishing craft up to the size of bulk carriers, have come to grief in the Bass Strait since that time, through reefs running aground, river bars foundering due to stress of weather, and some just lost without a trace, whatever that might mean. Some have said it was wreckers that deliberately attacked the ships, but there was the HMS Sappho in 1858, a British warship with 100 people on board, more than, which just disappeared and no wreckage. 1901, the SS Federal, carrying coal from New South Wales with 31 crew, vanished, and a wreck was not located until 2019, which is a hell of a long time to be lost, to be fair. 1906, the Ferdinand Fischer, German cargo ship, totally disappeared. The SS Amelia J, a schooner, in 1920. The HMAS Swordsman went searching, and while searching the Bass Strait, the second ship, the Barkentine SS Southern Cross, also disappeared. A military Airco DH-9A engaged in the search also disappeared. Wreckage of the SS Southern Cross was found only on King Island, and neither the SS Amelia J nor the Airco DH-9A was ever found again. The de Havilland Express Miss Hobart went missing in 1934, no wreckage. 1935, Leuna, a Holy Man airliner, crashed into the sea near Flinders Island, with 3 crew members and 2 passengers lost. No bodies found at all. World War II, several aircraft, mostly Royal Australian Air Force Bristol Beaufort bombers, were lost during exercises. So that went. 1972, a de Havilland Tiger Moth, flown by Brenda Heen and Max Price, disappeared. Then 1978, a Cessna by Frederick Valentich disappeared. We know that one. And 1979, the yacht Charleston totally disappeared and was never seen again. So there's the Bass Triangle, which seems reasonably creepy. I think that will do. Does it mean that Voynich disappeared? Not necessarily. But then again, who's to say? There's absolutely a lot going on there. Something happened, if nothing else, and they have their own Bermuda Triangle, because after all, Australia. Now, as we move along, I will welcome all of you guys that have just joined up. It's great to have you on board. Remember to like, share, subscribe, and do all the good things. Keep the channel going. Send some hearts, if nothing else, because I think it's fair to say that they're free, and themsers can consider sending gifties and joining in. So, what's our next point? So, according to UFO researcher Keith Basterfield, 5% of all UFO sightings that come in can't be explained. It's not a lot. They talk about crop circles, they talk about the taboo lifting and more. And they do point out that there is no UAP protocol in Australia. There is nothing for the reporting or recording of UFOs by public or military personnel. There are established procedures used by military and civilian air traffic for the management and reporting of airspace infringement and unknown aircraft, things that are a risk to aviation safety, but that's all it is. There is no compelling reason to divert resources to the specific investigation of UFOs. So you don't get things officially done in Australia, insofar as it matters. There have been reports, however, and they're very hard to read, of the Woomera testing site, where apparently UFOs were seen in releasing documents as such. And it is a confidential 2-page report detailing sightings in 1960 of an unidentified flying object near Wewak, a nuclear weapons testing range some 24 kilometers from Maralinga village. I bet the people that lived in Maralinga village felt really good to know that a mere 24 k's away they were dropping off a nuclear bomb. I'm just saying. The report was written in July of 1960 by a security officer, J.J. Hanlon, and originally formed part of a Department of Supply file on the weapons research establishment in South Australia. So there they were, practicing dropping bombs off, and while they were doing it, under light security, just so you know, 40 top secret nuclear weapons tests, codenamed Vixen, with just light security. Dear God. There were a number of reasons for the thoroughness of investigations: control of unwelcome public interest, national security, and scientific curiosity. Several dozen witnesses were interviewed for a number of reports associated with the Wewak sightings, including the Commonwealth Police, WRE staff, armed forces personnel, and native patrol officers, and members of the public. At the time of the report, tests were underway at sites, and they were also developing a space program at the Woomera rocket range. From 1952 to 1963, the British government, with the agreement and support of Australia, conducted nuclear tests at 3 sites in Australia: the Montebello Islands off the coast of Western Australia, and the Emu Field and Maralinga in South Australia. UFO sightings became common during the Cold War, against a background of political and military tensions between the Soviet Union and the United States and its allies. The anxiety and paranoia generated by espionage, weapons, and satellite tests found expression in Hollywood science fiction. Scientific experts who were consulted for this and other reports on the Wewak sightings said that they were all explicable, and there is no way that there were any UFOs there at all. But whatever you do, don't talk about it, don't get involved, because the government doesn't want you to say anything. Well, I leave that one up to you to decide. But in terms of, you've got to admit, if something screams cover up, that one screams cover up. I mean, no, it's fine. We don't want you to come and look at what we're doing. We're just dropping nuclear bombs off 24 k's away from where you live. Don't feel bad about it. And congratulations on your triple-headed baby that you've just had. I mean, right there. Endless thoughts. Got to go. Have a fantastic, fantastic evening, my dear. I hope that you are in fine and fabulous form, nevertheless. So, have a wonderful one. But we have more, because after all, more is good. In the 1980s, a family reported seeing a UFO while driving across the Nullarbor Plain in South Australia, like a big glowing ball, or like an egg in an egg cup. So the Nullarbor Plain issue, such as it was, where is my notes on the ufology thereof, because it was an abduction, was it not? I said it was an abduction. There we go. Okay. UFOs on the Nullarbor Plain. Now, I get the impression, such as somebody who hasn't been to Australia, I'm not the expert, but I understand that the Nullarbor Plain is big, flat, and empty. May. So Miss Faye Knowles and her three sons, Patrick, Sean, and Wayne, 24, 21, and 18 respectively, were about 40 kilometres west of Mundrabilla, driving towards South Australia, when they first saw the glowing object at around 2:45 a.m. yesterday. They told the police they had watched it as it chased a truck and car which was travelling in the direction opposite before turning and landing on their own vehicle. It apparently picked the car up off the road, shook it quite violently, and forced the car back down on the road with such pressure that one of the tires blew. While this was happening, the family said their voices were distorted and it was as if they were talking in slow motion. Mrs. Knowles told the police that the UFO turned our car around and placed it back on the road facing in the opposite direction. Once they were back on the road, they had jumped out and fled into the bush where they hid for some time before going back to the vehicle, changing the wheel, and then driving on to Ceduna in the far west of South Australia, and reported the incident to the local police. By chance, crime scene investigators from Port Lincoln were in Ceduna and they examined the car. They said we had to take it seriously. There's no reason why we shouldn't, suggested Sergeant Fred Longley of Ceduna Police. He says there were too many witnesses for us not to. The car was damaged and covered in ash from the object, and they were very clearly shaken up. The Knowles drew a diagram of the UFO that looked like an egg in an egg cup. So that's what they apparently saw. Whether or not it's true or not, I suppose you have to take it is. But the coppers, who I assume would be fairly experienced on such things, felt at least that the family showed sufficient emotional trauma, and the car was damaged and covered in ash, which is odd in and of itself. But the description is, at least, unlike anything we have discovered thus far, which is very, very strange. For it to pick up and shake a vehicle. Don't quite know what to make of that. It's definitely interesting, if nothing else. One to add to our list, but it sounds almost like something organic. Not sure. Love to hear your opinions on that one. Nevertheless, in the 1990s, on the 10th of March 1993, the then 69-year-old Eric Thompson photographed a UFO hovering around Maslin Beach. In August of the same year, Melbourne woman Kelly Cahill said she saw a UFO hovering over the road as she and her husband drove through the Dandenong Ranges near Belgrave, Victoria, and were subsequently abducted by aliens. Now, I do have that particular story, so let's see what she said happened, which may or may not add to our knowledge thereon. So, if her story is to be believed, August 7th, 1993, Kelly Cahill saw a UFO and beings from another world. As detailed in her book that she wrote afterwards, it had all the hallmarks of the classic alien abduction story of the area: lost time, strange spaceships, bright lights, inhuman creatures, and inexplicable marks on her body. But her story had something other visitations didn't: independent witnesses who could potentially back up what she said. Now that right there is very interesting. So there's a fair amount of intrigue that surrounds Kelly Cale's claims that apparently occurred on the outskirts of Melbourne. The Umemmering encounter, which was apparently witnessed by others, caused a rift between UFO and paranormal researchers and is considered by some to be the holy grail of alien abduction investigations, and apparently a 300-page report was made. So, along with her then husband Andrew, who was in the car with her on that fateful night on the southeastern fringes of Melbourne, there were reportedly 4 other people in 2 separate cars who would be able to verify her claims. Because of the multiple eyewitnesses, the incident obviously has been considered to be a very, very important one. It was one with the potential to provide definitive proof once and for all if, in fact, something was out there. But 27 years on, the truth about this is still not clear. A detailed report into the claims was never released, and other witnesses never came forward publicly. And then suddenly, Miss Cahill herself disappeared from public view. So, was this somehow a cover up or just a giant hoax? Well, that's the big question, isn't it? According to Miss Cahill, she and her husband Andrew were driving along the Belgrave Hallam Road in the Narra Warren on that winter's night of 1993. They were en route to a friend's house when Miss Cahill saw in a paddock a row of 5 or 6 large orange lights on a distinct circular shape, like nothing I have ever seen before. When they arrived at their destination, her husband and friends, and eventually even Miss Cahill, just laughed it off. But about midnight, driving home on the same road, she and Andrew apparently saw what she believed to be the same lights hanging above the road. I could see then that the orange lights were really windows, and I could make out figures standing behind the portals. The object flew off at incredible speed, but soon after they saw it again in a paddock on the side of the roads. After that, her memory blanked like a cutscene in a film, and the car had travelled several hundred meters down the road without them knowing. In the days and weeks that followed, she claimed to find strange marks on her body, including a small triangular wound below her belly button, and began experiencing stomach pains and night visitations from tall black hooded figures with lightly glowing red eyes. Through hypnosis, she said she was able to unlock the missing time. Her husband had pulled over and they got out the car to get a better look at the brightly lit object in the paddock. Further back up the road, another car had parked and the occupants were standing at the edge of the field. A tall, thin figure appeared in front of the object, and Cahill heard in her mind the thoughts, "Let's kill them." More beings appeared, unleashing an energy force that knocked Miss Cahill to the ground as she screamed to her husband, "They've got no souls, they're evil, they're going to kill us." And that's where the recollections end, but not the story. But wait, there's more. And all for just $49.95 at Clive Dinkey's Home of the Foot. No, that was something else. Okay, so Sydney-based researcher Bill Chalker of the UFO Investigation Center was one of the first people Miss Cahill contacted after the night. He immediately thought it was a fairly important case, but one that required a lot of feet on the ground and some intensive field investigations. He alerted a loosely connected Melbourne group of paranormal investigators called the PRA, then led by director John Alshetty. He interviewed Ms. Cahill many times and examined the scene of the alleged sightings near the Memmering Creek. He and the PRA placed an ad in the local newspapers in an effort to find the occupants of the second car. Remarkably, they got a response, and Mr. Alshetty said that the stories from the second car were identical to that of Miss Cahill, but went even further, detailing experiences inside the mystery craft where they were strapped to a table and examined by beings. According to the PRA, the women had the same triangular wounds near their navels and other strange marks. There was even talk of a third car driven by a local lawyer that the PRA discovered, whose story also lined up. Researchers began prepping an exhaustive 300-page report that promised to reveal the truth. Eventually, the media got wind, and she appeared on TV on the Today Tonight. Her story also ran in the newspapers and some magazines. She was a big name on the UFO circuit for a while. And her book was published by HarperCollins, which is quite a serious book publishing company, so interesting. It's currently out of print, though it was reprinted several times, but you can still get copy for about $150 online. By 1998, she'd disappeared from the scene, and none of the other witnesses, including her ex-husband Andrew, had come out to back her story, and the PRA's report had disappeared. By 2020, there's still no report. And one wonders what happened to it. Remarkably, all these years later, they say that the PRA's report might still come out, but not yet. The idea was that we would release the report and then bring the witnesses out. But if they bring it out now without any proof, they'll get hammered. It was whittled down to a usable 100 pages or so when the witnesses, including Miss Cahill and her ex-husband, began to ask for information to be taken out and refused to allow the publication of medical and psychological reports they claimed backed up their stories. It got weird. It seems that there was a lot of bad blood between the different ufologists, which kind of stuffed everything up, which means that now all of this incredible evidence, which would have given us a lot to work with, isn't available anymore. We do, though, see that there are certain basics which fit to the reports we have seen. For some reason, they do examinations, even surgery on people. They do have an ability to somehow paralyze or knock people out. They seem to be able to stop you from knowing what's going on for a time, which means that lost time is common. But ultimately, it seems that it's just fallen to nothing. And that's really sad, because I think we should know more. But nevertheless, it was a great alien abduction case. It's better than a lot of the others that are out. The only other ones that are worth talking about is the Orianne Leigh abduction case, which we will talk about now. if it allows us to. It does not. It's in a locked file. So you don't get to hear about that. Instead, we are going to hear about the... That's a pity. I would like to have learned more about that. The Ariel School UFO incident, which is again not correct for this. We want Australian. There's trouble with these documents. They jump you to all kinds of other places that aren't connect. Nevertheless, in terms of Australian ufology, they've got a number of different abduction reports, some of which seem very realistic. There's a lot of UFO reports, which are pretty cool. And by and large, what's very interesting is, at least so far, all of the reports from around the world that we've seen pretty much fit strongly to the same themes. The descriptions, by and large, are about the same kind of thing, which makes for an interesting setup in that regard. And I think that we can absolutely say that we're getting a fairly straightforward standard in the kind of ships and in the kind of aliens. So we're definitely getting places. I will say that in terms of there is quite a lot that Australia doesn't tell you. You get brief comments on things and then nothing. There's a lot of files and stuff that you're just not going to be able to know anything about from Australia, which might be a good thing, I suppose. It might be a bad thing. It depends on what you're trying to achieve by that, I suppose. We do know, however, we have one last story we can talk about. So let's do that, and you can then tell me all what you think. So along the 3,000 kilometre highway that connects northern and southern Australia is a site that was once the nation's UFO capital. This is Wycliffe Well. Population now 0. So in 1985, a former sailor with the Royal Australian Navy, Lou Farkas, was looking for change, and there was a small roadhouse store available, which presented an opportunity for him and his wife and their 9-month-old son, and there was no other competition for hundreds of kilometers. So he started a small filling station and caravan park, and it was going bombingly. It was great. But then weird things started happening, and the past owners revealed to him that there were UFO sightings, you see. So the previous owner kept the sighting secret so that prospective buyers didn't get spooked. But then a journalist from Tennant Times newspaper story wrote about the potential sightings in the 80s, and everything's changed. That was, I mean, once I got out to the media, I was getting calls from all over the world and whatnot, said Mr. Farkas. He himself was a skeptic. But hey, it's business and it worked. So they made it alien orientated. Murals, souvenirs, to a book ledger of so-called UFO sightings, tours at night for enthusiasts. Mr. Farkas did it all. There were lights flashing around the sky, though, doing crazy maneuvers you just couldn't explain. So the roadhouse grew. And after decades of running it, he sold his business to Anthony van der Zalm in 2010. And he also enjoyed the eccentricities of running a green oasis in the outback. It was a caravan park. It had motel rooms. It was a pub. It was handy. But years of working hard, he also decided to sell. when he did so to United Petroleum. And when United took over the control of the business, UFOs were not their focus. So when they bought it, they wanted to know how much fuel I sold, and that was it. They didn't care. So they're a fuel company. These days, it seems that nobody goes there at all. There was a major flood and everyone had to evacuate anywhere, and it became vandalized. So for a while it was great, but it seems that for a time they were seeing things, lights in the sky and all sorts, and nobody has given explanation. It would be cool if they could get it going, or if they could investigate better the Wycliffe Wells place. But besides saying that there were all kinds of fast moving lights in the sky, and one or two people claimed at least to see saucers, and that the lights moved in ways you couldn't explain, they don't say much else. And that's all I can say. It is now closed down. Nobody goes there at all. And that is the end of the Australian UFOs. Nevertheless, it did have what I think is probably our first of the really decent alien abduction stories. The things that we really are looking for in terms of something to sink the teeth in, if you will. And it's been pretty damn good, I think, in that regard. So I'm quite pleased with what Australia had to offer. But I do think we need to now turn our attention to the other elephant, as it were, of the UFO community, which we will do in the next live, because I do want to compare the things we've seen in the different lives thus far to that of what is said at Roswell. So we're gonna go and hit on that one in the next one. But do remember, while I normally do a live every night at 10 South African time, that's GMT +2, Sundays I do not. So you will not get one tomorrow night. But nevertheless, do come back on Monday. And remember, like, share, subscribe, send lots and lots and lots of gifties and things to keep us all going. And join me Monday night, where we are going to have a go at Roswell to see if we can get any better or more interesting information thereon. But in the meanwhile, I am going to say to you all, please send me questions, send me your comments, and if any of you have seen a UFO, I would be very interested in hearing about it. Just to add to our stories, interactions are always great. Even if they wander off down a rabbit hole, we do enjoy that. So come back on Monday and we shall see what we can find. And until then, have a fantastic evening. And as I always tell you, sleep deep, sleep sweet. But remember, sleep with one eye open, and maybe keep a holy object near at hand, because you never know. Sometimes those things that go bump in the night might very well go bump for you.